Viewer discretion is advised. 343 was standing just behind 239. His face was knit in concentration. The old man's nose had a drop of blood forming just below the left nostril, slowly running down over the crest of his lip and dropping down onto his shirt. Hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today, we bring you SCP Foundation's Safe Class Object, SCP-343. SCP-343, colloquially nicknamed God by the staff of SCP Foundation, is an older man. He is a humanoid in appearance, but with apparent omnipotence. According to the Foundation, although 343 looks like an old man, his features could appear differently to each observer. 343 claimed to be the creator of the universe. When asked to prove it, he laughed, walked through the wall of the chamber, and returned seconds later with a hamburger in his hand. When the doctor returned for a second visit, the previously bare cell had been furnished into a larger room, one that embraced a fantastical Old English type of style and seemed many times larger than it did from the exterior. 343 was discovered walking the streets of Prague. He was detained after a staff member witnessed him disappear from the street, only to reappear a short time later on a rooftop. 343 is detained willingly in his chamber, as containment has proved impossible. 343 resides in a 6.1 meter by 6.1 meter room at Minimal Security Site 17. He should be brought any items he requests and visited by at least one staff member each day because he likes company. Attempts to add further safety precautions or required clearances are unnecessary due to the nature of 343. SCP-343 greatly enjoys speaking with people and seems to have a knowledge of all topics. Visiting 343 has become a daily event for many of the Foundation's staff members, and most of them have reported feeling happier after each visit. Since 343 has been rather harmless thus far, all staff have been allowed access. According to SCP Tales, it was believed that 343 is the one who mentored SCP-239, allowing her to master her powers and create ways. SCP-239 is a small girl with the ability to do whatever she expresses a will to do, as long as she is conscious. If she can see it, she can change it. Hence, as a method of controlling 239, the Foundation has put her in a coma. However, SCP-239 later developed a complete resistance to the drugs the Foundation had used to keep her comatose. To stop her from reawakening, the director of SCP Foundation was forced to request the O5 Council for the immediate release of Dr. Alto Clef from his confinement, and immediately assigned him to this case. Dr. Clef was given access to any materials he required. All personnel were to assist Dr. Clef by any and all non-carnal means. Clef walked into the Victorian-styled study and smiled at the fragrance of pipe smoke and at the sight of old books. The old man was seated in a high-backed chair with a hardbound copy of Don Quixote open in his lap. The old man looked up, startled surprise before smiling. "Dr. Clef." "Hello, 343. "Oh, please. No numbers between friends. Sit, please." "We both know what you are. I've never said anything about you, not to anyone. Nor have I recommended your termination, mainly because you stayed at level 3 and never posed a significant threat. You remember me from the GOC then? Geneva, 1989? And you remember that you owe me a favor." "Yes, Doctor. I remember." "I've come to collect. There's another type green. This one has progressed to level 4. "I'm very old now, Doctor. I'm not sure how useful I can be. Sometimes I look for books, but I can't remember their names, and they're just not there anymore. Just the other day, a young man came in here to ask me about something, and I forgot he was here. And then he wasn't. Just gone, and I can't remember him. No one wants to say anything. Your aid will be necessary. I am a man of honor, Doctor. I will do whatever you need." Days later, Dr. Clef appeared in SCP-239's containment. He was looking through the steel, attempting to get a glimpse at 239's sleeping form. He watched her, watched the fading phantasms of her flicker about the room and scratching at the walls. He turned and picked up the thin helmet, strapping it to his head. The body armor was a little bulkier than he'd anticipated, but it fit well enough. He pulled on the gloves, fingered the purple gun underneath his jacket, and felt through his pockets until he found the tiny box containing his emergency backup. He grinned and picked up a keycard, sliding it into a control panel in front of the glass. He flipped the switches all down to their off position and pulled out the revolver, bringing it up to point at 239, who was slowly waking up. Clef was running very quickly. He could feel her back there, floating somewhere. He risked a glance backward, watching the floors buckle into water and piss, dirt and air. He hoped she would be off balance enough from the medications that she would be less capable, less able to affect the environmental changes on the universe. He was quite sure it was a pointless hope now. He rounded the corner, and the walls slid into chunks of burning human flesh. The smell of human flesh began to turn his stomach slightly, before making it growl uncomfortably. One more turn, and he'd be at ground zero. Another 10 feet. 9, 8, 7. He burst through the doors. "Where's 343?" The doors opened slowly. The being that floated through them didn't look like it was, is, or had ever been a little girl. Years of atrophy had turned her limbs into spindly wires of flesh wrapped around bone. She wasn't able to lift them. She couldn't even turn her head. The tubes that had hung out of her arms were now crawling over her body like centipedes. She opened her mouth, trying to say something, but only a gurgle came out. She looked at Clef and gurgled again, louder, angrily. 343 was standing just behind 239, his face knit in concentration. The old man's nose had a drop of blood forming below the left nostril, slowly running down over the crest of his lip and dropping onto his shirt. The girl screamed in rage, and 343 cried out, staggered by the changes she was forcing into the world. The drugs in her system were quickly dissipating, with her control over the world around her returning. 239 turned the air into chlorine for a moment, just a moment before 343 could stop her. 343 was kneeling on the floor, ears bleeding. His knotted hands were clenched as his foe turned for the moment from Clef to float toward him. It was almost beautiful to watch, Clef thought, stopping for an instant to observe what he hoped was a rare circumstance. The distance between them crackled as the hovering female changed things, reversing the laws of physics and existence as 343 set them back into place. It was like watching a petulant child throw her toys to the floor while her patient grandfather picked them back up. Clef edged around near the door, raising the revolver again. He fired. Chunks of flesh were ripped from her body and thrown behind her to the mirror. She screamed as the cancer started to form almost instantly under her flesh. "Don't care much for that, do you, little girl?" Clef dropped the gun and tackled her before she could recover, hitting her tiny waist sharply and pushing her toward the mirror, grasping SCP-093 and shoving. They fell into a strange field, with rolling wheat and smells of emptiness. The girl was rolling on the ground, willing herself up off the ground pitifully. Clef stood nearby, knocking the bits of wheat and grass off his armor. He walked over and forced her body over. "Sorry, dearie, different world, different rules." Finally, he managed to knock her out. As she loses consciousness, her eyes thankfully glossed in the pleasant emptiness of oblivion. Remember to check out my new animation channel, TheRubber Talks, where I share my life story, thoughts, and opinions. Just click on the link in the description to enter TheRubber's world. Before we end this video, we are proud to present these incredibly sweet pieces of fan art.
A big thank you to all of you. You can now send us your fan art, and we will be more than happy to show off your best art piece in our next video. Check out our description below on how to submit. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Which SCP do you want to see in the next video and why it is interesting? Let us know in the comment below. We will draw your story and share it with the world. Don't forget to click like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell. Please share it to your friends if you like this video. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.
I looked toward the nomads for help, but they only backed away from me. The black cloaks got closer to the camp, brandished their blades as they joined the nomads.
We are the Global Occult Coalition, protectors of the human race. Inhumans like you must be exterminated to protect our purity. Nothing personal. This is purely business. Now perish.
I laughed. The black cloaks and the nomads joined forces and rushed upon me. My fury had me completely surrendering my mind to the curse, and in return, I was granted the strength and tenacity to clash against them head-on. A bloody fight ensued, and the camp was torn apart. I killed them all.
The alarm went off in Site 17. An anomaly had breached containment.
Warning. Code Red. A specimen has breached containment. No life signal detected at Cell 343.
Security rushed into the cell, armed and ready, only to find the door locked, with no signs of forced entry or exit. Everything appeared to be in order. However, the former resident of Cell 343 was nowhere to be found. All that was left behind was a document, a dossier on SCP-343, God. It was altered, however. God was no longer a safe class object. It became Keter. It was now uncontained. And as for its description,
My friends, it is high time that I leave you. I must be moving on. Thank you greatly for your hospitality during my time of need. However, it is no longer safe here, and while this is no fault of yours, I cannot in good conscience allow myself to remain. I have taxed your kindness enough. While it cannot repay what you have done for me, in return for your kindness, I will tell you a story.
hello everybody, I'm TheRubber. Today, we bring you a tale from the SCP Foundation.
The story begins with a poor boy of Prague, born many long years ago to a poor mother and a poor father. Life was hard. It often is in such stories. There was little food to be had and too many mouths to feed. My mother made little coins as a seamstress. My father worked in the factory. He was not an unkind man, but he did spend much of his meager earnings on various vices that poisoned his mind. This was when I first learned of what I could do. My father returned home late one night, far more furious than he had been before. He was raging and cursing about, maddened with the dissatisfactions of his life, I suppose. My mother tried to calm him down, but his slurring became angrier and angrier in argument, and eventually he struck her. I opened my room door just a tiny slit to peek through. My mother screamed, so I immediately rushed out of my room and screamed at him. "Stop," I said, and he did. He stopped like a statue. He was frozen in place. Not even the folds of his clothing would be moved. His face was twisted in his blinding rage, but his eyes were different. There was no more anger there, only fear. In that moment, I saw in my father's eyes a man who was looking into his own damnation. And though they did not move, I knew he could see me. Somehow I knew that I had not killed my father. I had done something far, far worse. In later years, I've performed similar miracles, or rather curses, on certain unsavory people who had wronged me later on to teach them a lesson. I released them after a fortnight. Soon as they started to move, they threw up everything they didn't eat. I could only imagine the depth of my powers. But I digress. I turned to my mother. She looked at me as if she was scared of me. Mother? She backed away when I took a step towards her. I felt shunned by the only safe haven from my father's rage. It broke me. And so I ran, leaving my mother and petrified father behind. To this day, I do not know what happened to them. I pray they were spared what came to follow me. Years passed. I begged and stole and clawed my way across Europe without direction, half feral and the other half mad. My curse was no longer content with simply leaking out with my words. It lashed out on its own, wild and deadly. I gave in to its call to violence, and took the lives of a baker and a shopkeeper who recognized me. The men had observed me for days. One day, they had me surrounded, dragged me into an alley. They called me names and beat me mercilessly. I had no choice but to return the courtesy fatally. Death followed me wherever I went. Every little thing irritated me, and I would not hesitate to abuse my power on innocent people. I behaved like a wild animal, and was treated like one too. I began to speak less and less, and started to growl and behaved in a beastly manner. I was slowly losing my own humanity. And soon, I began to attract unwanted attention. It was a group of wandering nomads who had found me first, when I was passed out one day from sheer hunger. When I woke up, I had become so unused to speaking with human beings that I could do nothing but croak like a frog for days. Eventually, I could whisper, but they did not understand me, nor I them. But they did feed me, and I watched them as they practiced their arts. They did not seem to fear me. Here, I thought, here is where I may learn to control the curse. I never spoke to them about it, but after living with them for a few days, I felt that I could trust them. Then came the most important, painful lesson in life. The world is cruel, and trust is an unsafe virtue. The nomads dropped their friendly facade, and men in black cloaks emerged from afar. They approached the camp and had me surrounded. I looked toward the nomads for help, but they only backed away from me. The black cloaks got closer to the camp, brandished their blades as they joined the nomads.
We are the Global Occult Coalition, protectors of the human race. Inhumans like you must be exterminated to protect our purity. Nothing personal. This is purely business. Now perish.
I laughed. The black cloaks and the nomads joined forces and rushed upon me. My fury had me completely surrendering my mind to the curse. And in return, I was granted the strength and tenacity to clash against them head on. A bloody fight ensued, and the camp was torn apart. I killed them all, except for one. You go back to your little band of human lovers and tell them you cannot kill me, for I am God. I said and watched him flee like a coward. For a little while, I reveled in the death around me. The bodies of the nomads and the black cloaks reminded me of what I'm capable of. The world is a cruel place, indifferent to a man's suffering, and so I must transcend beyond man and become God. In the following days, they had found me. I was dangerous, and they would stop at nothing to possess me. I fled, and I learned. I taught myself. My curse became more of a blessing. I lived in a secret little war, and as I fought, I learned more and more. How to take the shape of another. How to make a mouthful of bread or a handful of water. The black cloaks returned time after time. It seemed they were comprised of people from different nations. The British, the French, the Prussians, some of my own empire, members of the church, and even an American. They hunted me, and in return, I hunted them. More years passed, though I barely noticed. I existed as the faceless man walking down the street, seen once and forgotten forever. I was convinced that I had moved past, beyond man's values. I became amoral. My power was simply a tool at my disposal for my own survival. I picked up languages, identities, scraps of knowledge that would aid me, weapons and defenses against my enemies. I would practice my arts in the dark, honed my power to its fullest. But as things happen, my enemies had learned as well, and they had learned better than me. After all, the road to godhood was not without its challenges. I was ambushed. My guard was down, and they sprung. They had me surrounded like a cornered animal. They had ways to prevent me from healing myself, ways to prevent me from escaping, weapons that could hurt me. They drove at me, raising my hiding places and piercing my disguises. My mind, fragile as it was from years of animalistic existence, began to unravel. A great many died by my hand, and all along I felt myself slipping away further from godhood. They drove me across bloody fields, to Paris, down deep into the bowels of that city where the dead digested in their holy peace. It was in those catacombs where I had an epiphany, a transformation. I became a god in a dark, slimy hole, weakened and half dead. My apotheosis was witnessed by the empty sockets of 1,000 skulls. It was also at that moment I felt human. All these battles, the savagery, began to seem pointless. I returned to the surface. Even though the global occult coalition was waiting for my return, the fight was over before it had begun. A god has no reason to fear a man, and he likewise need not bother engaging them. They merely needed to be waved away. And so I did. Then I left. For the first time in decades, they did not follow. For the first time in decades, I let out a breath of relief. It was then I made my place among you. I found my purpose in the Foundation, a life worth living, even though I was technically in your captivity. I've seen people come and go during my time here, odd personalities and dangerous anomalies. Memories I shan't forget until my next life. But now, it is time for me to leave. I know that you will seek me out, but know this. Just how much do you think you know about me? I've spent my time playing card tricks and telling stories. Could it all simply be a ruse? All to make you believe that my power was infinite, that you would not dare cross me lest I destroy you. You were never in my power, but I in yours. With you, I was safe, a god in his holy place. I had hoped that I would ride out the storm, that those who sought to destroy me would eventually give up, but recently I began to feel their presence in the world. Their powers are growing stronger day by day, and I suspect that their hunt for me never stopped. And you would eventually have to turn me over. And so I must leave you. Thank you for the kindness you have shown me. I can only hope that this story may lighten your hearts. Goodbye, my friends. Goodbye.
We hope you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to click like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell. Have a favorite SCP you want to see on this channel? Leave us your suggestions in the comments down below. In the meantime, if you'd like to see more SCP content, then check out some of our other videos right here. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in our next video. Bye-bye.